This is the 77 WABC Minicast.
So yesterday, as President and the First Lady were boarding a flight, he took some questions from the media and said, for the first time I've heard him say this, I think, that regime change, overthrow of Iran's government, quote, well, it seems like that would be the best thing that could happen. For 47 years, they've been talking and talking and talking, Trump told reporters following a visit to Fort Bragg. And in the meantime, we've lost a lot of lives, et cetera, et cetera. Let's see what happens. I will also say, when I interviewed him earlier this past week, he talked about a deal, as he has. He'd like to make a deal. He doesn't know if it's possible. I suggested to him, do you think a deal with Iran with this current regime would ever really stick? He said, I don't know. I know one thing, they want to make a deal. He believes this. They wouldn't talk to anybody else, but they're talking to me. But, it's a good question. A lot of people say no. And I would say that I'd rather make a deal. It's got to be a good deal. No nuclear weapons, no missiles, no this, no that, all the different things, but it's got to be a good deal. And then he criticized heavily Obama and Biden for bad deals, and he's right about that. But regime change is suddenly back on the table, so let's talk to my very dear friend, Ambassador Robert O'Brien, former national security advisor in President Trump's first term. Robert is now chairman of American Global Strategies. Robert, do you think he's changing his tune a little bit? Was he sending a signal yesterday, or am I reading too much into the news article?
No, Larry, I think you're 100% right, and thank you for having me on this morning. President Trump has a pattern, and you've seen it, I've seen it, we've seen it firsthand, we've watched it in the second term, from a little bit of a distance. He gives the adversary a very good deal, and his preference, as you stated, is to make a deal. He abhors the loss of American lives, especially the loss of American servicemen and women. And so he gives the bad guys a chance to do the right thing. If they don't do the right thing, he takes action. But if they do the right thing, he'll give them a deal. The problem with the Iranians is they've, for 49 years, as you pointed out, they've been punking American presidents, from Jimmy Carter, even Ronald Reagan, who hit him pretty hard with a naval attack. But George W. Bush, George H.W. Bush, Clinton, Obama especially. Obama just surrendered to him, and Biden was much the same attitude. So they don't know they're dealing with a different president, with President Trump. So I think what's happened is he gave them the offer. They're stalling on it. They're extending and pretending and trying to use these negotiations to get past the crisis. And now President Trump is saying, okay, the window's closing. And I'll tell you, when the window closes, it closes.
Yeah, that's for sure. He's moving. This particular article I'm looking at, Robert O'Brien, he's moving another aircraft carrier group into the region. The USS Abraham Lincoln is there. This one says the second aircraft carrier, the USS George H.W. Bush, is prepared to deploy. I had also heard that, I thought I read someplace the Gerald Ford battleship group, but you know more about that than I do. But the point is, he's moving more resources into the region, which is itself probably a leading indicator. What you think?
I agree, Larry, because once you move a carrier battle group into the region, you can only leave it there for so long. The deployment, schedule for these carriers is, at max about 280 days. The Abraham Lincoln is getting close to that. I'm like you, I don't get the morning brief anymore. But
yeah.
I read in the paper that they're thinking about sending the George H.W. Bush from Norfolk or sending the Ford, which has been on station off Venezuela. There's a potential there that they could send they could send the Ford and the Bush. And so then you have three carriers in the region. And keep in mind, each of these carriers has about 90 aircraft on them. So we're talking about potentially, 270 aircraft. in the region, if all three carriers win, then 180. If just two carriers go, that's an incredible amount of firepower. That's more firepower than most countries' entire air force on those two ships. So it's going to be he'll be able to deliver a devastating blow to the Iranians if they don't take the deal.
And a lot of firepower to protect Israel, our bases, other countries, I suppose, right? Isn't that how that works? Absolutely. Yeah, because, our fighter aircraft, as we've shown in these past couple of barrages that the Iranians have launched at the Israelis, our fighter aircraft can down their cruise missiles and down some of the ballistic missiles. So my guess is they'll have one carrier in the Persian Gulf region and one in the Mediterranean. They can certainly reach Iran and touch Iran, but they'll also defend Israel and then the Israeli airspace. So another. Look, I so would like to see regime change. Question is, what happens? I mean, he can kill the mullahs, take out the Revolutionary Guard, but he's not that keen on Reza Pahlavi. He never really talks up the Shah's son. And the question, Robert O'Brien, is always, okay, you want it to be indigenous, so somebody has to emerge as an indigenous non-regime leader, but has that work, or were we taking a risk there? I mean, these are probably things that he and his team are considering. Well, the problem in the Middle East is you always wonder if the new guy is worse than the dictator you get rid of. But in the case of the Iranians, it's hard to imagine something worse. I mean, remember, Larry, these people killed our Marines, the Marine barracks in Beirut. They killed our diplomats, the embassy in Beirut back in 82, 83. Then they went to Khobar Towers and killed the Army and Air Force personnel in Saudi Arabia at Khobar Towers. Then they killed 600 to 800 at least American soldiers in Iraq. They've killed Bob Levinson, the hostage there, longtime hostage there. These are very brutal men who've killed thousands of Americans. And, so the idea of getting someone worse is, I don't think that'll happen, but you're right, we do need an indigenous Iranian leader to rise up. The problem with that is that it's hard to identify a leader, because as soon as a leader is identified in Iran, in the opposition, he gets hung from a crane or shot. So if we give him some space, and maybe the Crown Prince Pahlavi comes in as like Juan Carlos did after Franco in Spain for 6 months or 8 months or a year, supervises things until there's an election, and has a free and fair election, and that the Iranian people can elect their own leaders. That's ultimately what we want. We don't want to put an American puppet in. We want the Iranians to select their own leader in a free and fair election. And maybe Pahlavi comes in as a caretaker. But the point is, these murderous thugs who are there, and by the way, they've threatened, I still admire the president's cool, the way he's dealing with this issue, because keep in mind, and you know this, Larry, from our briefings in the first Trump term, these mullahs and ayatollahs have threatened to kill the president. They put out very slick videos showing them assassinating him on the golf course. They threatened to kill his family, his friends, his associates. And the president has put all that aside and is still trying to get a deal with them because he thinks it's in the best interest of the American people. But if they don't, accede to a good deal and stop threatening their neighbors and our allies in Israel, Saudi, and the UAE, and Kuwait, and all the other Gulf states, then I don't think the president will have any problem pulling the trigger, because these guys have literally threatened to kill him. We're talking to Ambassador Robert O'Brien, who was a former national security advisor in Trump's first term. He's now chairman of American Global Strategies. Robert, what are they doing and thinking in this Munich defense conference? Do they understand the stakes are so high in Iran? I mean, the Europeans have by and large been terrible on Iran. They do business with Iran. They always want a deal. They're backing up the Biden deals, backing up the Obama deals. Many of them boycott Israel's, in business terms. So here they are. The whole crowd of them is in Munich. Meanwhile, the hour of ending the regime in Iran may be drawing close. What can you say about it? Is there anything good to say about Munich? I don't even understand it.
No, Larry, these security conferences, Davos, Munich, and some of the other ones, they're kind of relic of a past age when America called all the shots and gave the Europeans a chance to talk shop at these places. What I kind of look, we're friends with Europe, and we've got a common destiny with Europe, and many of us came from European countries, at least our ancestors did, and so there's an affinity there. But the Europeans, since World War II, have not wanted to back up anything with force. They think they can deal with everything with a treaty or trade or aid. They've Mugabe and Castro, and they have these love affairs with these third world despots. Maduro, Chavez, the Ayatollahs. I mean, the Ayatollah was in exile in France before he came back. When he overthrew the Shah, he came from France. So they think if they give aid and appease their adversaries, that they'll be the last person eaten by the crocodile, I guess. But quietly, they'll tell you when we're taking action. They'll all come quietly. They'll never say it publicly, but they'll quietly tell you, "Thank you. This is a terrible problem. You handle it." And then they'll go on TV and talk about the big bad Americans not doing something on a multilateral basis. But
yeah,
they would be very pleased if we got rid of the Iranians, but they're never going to come out and say it.
You were the one that I'm almost sure you were the one that reminded me a week or two ago that they're still buying oil and gas from Russia. Their supposed arch enemy. I mean,
they're buying oil and gas from Russia. They're buying oil and gas from Iran.
Yeah.
They're in massive trade with China.
Oh my God!
And then they want America to defend. They want American taxpayers to defend them from these countries that they're doing these big trade deals with. It's quite astounding.
Phenomenal.
But we love our European friends, and it's going to be tough love in Munich, but in families need a little tough love.
Nothing but love, right? Tough love. I love that. Tough love. Ambassador Robert O'Brien, just about as good as it gets, folks. He's now chairman of the American Global Strategies, and I pitch in every now and then. Thank you, Robert. We appreciate it very much. Folks, we're going to take a break, and then we're going to do some stock market work on the other side. Dow 50,000, S&P 7,000. It's a wonderful story. I'm Kudlow. Stay with us.